Hello, everybody. Welcome to Movie Nights. I wanted to pull this one back a little bit since my last intro was a little bit harsh. So let's just be friends here. Let's just be friends here. We're talking.
You demanded me to cut off the music.
Let's let that stuff roll, man. I like it. Okay, not that far though. So today we're going to talk about a little of the things that we've been talking about before. We're going to do a bit of a deep dive into some techniques that some movies do. Be a little bit broad, a little bit specific, just to kind of cover our bases on the things that we've talked about, and we can bring up why we mentioned those, what they really mean, and then we can sort of keep this in mind when we're talking about things, and later it could come up in a review, next show, whatever it might be. This also isn't going to be like the intro to some super long series. I mean, we'll have multiple episodes where we talk about different techniques or different topics or subjects or whatever, but this isn't going to be like a part 1 of 5 thing. Next month and a half we're only going to be talking techniques. But with that being said, so for today we're going to just talk about the basic idea of foreshadowing, and then we'll do a bit of a deeper dive into different ways you can foreshadow. Foreshadowing is something that's kind of hard to tell any story without doing it. It's not just for movies. Any sort of media that is telling a story, you're going to have foreshadowing. And that's just sort of setting the table for something that's going to happen in the future. And I'll let Brandon tell you guys a little bit more about that before we do a deeper dive.
Yeah, so before we get into what foreshadowing is, just make sure to stay through the end of the show so we can let you know what our review is coming up for tomorrow. Yeah. Hey, the foreshadow. So yeah, foreshadowing is that right there. Pretty much a director, writer, author, anything from there, who gives a little hint in a film in one way or another, whether it is a very small piece. It might seem like it's not important at all, but then at the end of the movie, it's like, whoa, that's why they showed us that. Or it could be hey, remember this, please remember this because it's going to be big. Or we'll also go into poor sides of potential not foreshadowing in ways from there. So that'll be a lot of what we're talking about today. All right, so now that I've kind of explained the gist of foreshadowing, I'm going to go ahead and send it back over to Alex, and he'll break it down a little more in depth, and we'll go over some of the different ideas.
Right, so like Brandon said, it's just them saying, hey, keep an eye out for this, don't forget this. It could be little things. I mean, we mentioned it with our Project Power review. They walked past a plant, it came back to life, and that was the director going, hey, pay attention. Or even in our most recent one, other than Mulan, that movie sucked, Bill and Ted, when it was Preston and Logan on the thing, not Bill and Ted, it was like, hey, keep an eye out for this. Just something that the director wants you to hang on to. And so there are a couple different specific techniques that go along with foreshadowing, different ways that they can sort of set the table for you. The first one that we're going to talk about is using Chekhov's gun. And that's not to say that it's always a gun, but basically what that means is if you're going to load a gun, you better shoot it. What it goes back to is a little bit more specific. It's if you're going to put a gun on the wall in the first act, it better fire by the third act. But basically it boils down to if you load something, shoot it. And so a couple examples of that are like the Mosasaurus in Jurassic World. We see them take the time to show you something specific. It's during a sort of montage of the introduction to Jurassic World, but they made sure to really let you know, hey, Mosasaurus is right here. Kind of big, can jump, it likes to eat things. And so that's something that they made sure that you remembered. That's them loading the gun. And then by the end of the film, spoiler alert, by the way, this whole episode's going to be kind of vaguely spoilery, so just preemptive spoiler alert to all things we talk about. But at the end of Jurassic World, we see the fight with the Indominus Rex, and who comes to save the day? The Mosasaurus. Loaded the gun in the first act, they fired it in the third. One of my personal favorites is in Kung Fu Panda with the whooshy finger hold. It's something that they made sure to bring attention to in the first part. It was for a joke, no less. And that's what it can be. It's just something that they kind of add a little bit of extra emphasis on when they're loading the gun, and then that's how the end of the movie happens. That's how Poe wins with the whooshy finger hold. I think the funniest one, if you see me looking off, there's nothing special over here. The funniest one for me is the actual gun on the wall in Shaun of the Dead. They're joking around in the first act. That gun is loaded. There's a gun on the wall. It's loaded. Ha 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 ha. And then later on in the movie, he literally takes it off the wall, fires it, doing word for word what the whole idea of Chekhov's gun is. So those are different ways they can foreshadow, is that sort of loading the gun to fire it later. I'll kick it to Brandon again. Do you have anything to, any specifics that you liked for Chekhov's gun, or anything that stuck with you?
One of, again, I was kind of going through just a bunch of lists and stuff because, I guess the thing that excited me about this show is this is more a little bit of Alex's wheelhouse of, the breaking down of movies and stuff. So I've had a kind of a fun time just trying to go through lists and understand everything as well. And going through, I found Dodgeball. And this is probably one of my favorites because growing up, I love this movie so much. And it was Peter getting the scarf from Patches and then using it in the end of the dodgeball tournament for the sudden death. He puts it on his eyes and then wins the tournament with his scarf. So that's definitely one of my favorites, at least through everything I was seeing.
That's a good one, honestly. And we had a conversation about that one too, because that's something like that and something like the Mosasaurus are close to, but not quite, another technique that we're going to talk about, and those are MacGuffins. And that is something that is crucial to the plot. So you have something like the Mosasaurus or the scarf. They're maybe crucial to the ending. They loaded the gun and then they fired it and it happened to kill the bad guy or happened to win whatever they were doing. It doesn't always have to be the case. But with MacGuffins, it's something that is crucial to the plot. It's a thing that's introduced that without it, there sort of is no plot. And so that's sort of the difference between a MacGuffin and something that's more like Chekhov's gun. Is Chekhov's gun might be crucial to the ending. It might be something that we see more than once, something like a motif, which we'll also talk about. But it's something that is sort of introduced and then brought up later, where the MacGuffin is something that is so crucial to the plot. It's something like... the one that we talk about the most is like the suitcase or the briefcase in Pulp Fiction. Without that, there is no story. And Pulp Fiction is an interesting one because it's like 5 different stories that kind of fall in together, and they all kind of center around this briefcase in one way or another. Because without it, they're not in the right place to experience the other parts of the story. It's crucial. Some others, like the Holy Grail is a good one. It's something that's in a whole bunch of movies, and without it, there is no movie. It's something that's so specific to that movie that it has to be there. Some other really good ones, if you're a classic film fan, Rosebud in Citizen Kane. That's something that drove the entire plot. Without it, there is no plot. Some funny ones one funny one is Doug in The Hangover. Without them losing Doug, there is no plot. There's no story. There's nothing for them to do. And that sort of shows you that it doesn't just have to be a thing. It can be a person. It can be an idea. It's something that without it, you have no plot, but it might not really matter in another story. I think one Brandon might like the best is I'll let you introduce that one.
All right, sounds good. A couple of them, of course, for me is the One Ring in Lord of the Rings. Again, one of those items that it's just a ring, but it completely drives the plot for all 3 films, is destroying the ring. And then as you mentioned, going through these, I didn't realize it could be a person, like for Private Ryan, Saving Private Ryan. And then, of course, as you already mentioned, Doug, because I always kind of took it was, an item or maybe an idea, something more along the lines of like the Death Star plans in Star Wars. So it's kind of cool, how similar but so different they can be, from being a symbol, almost a motto, to an item, to a person. And then it, kind of keeps the whole thing together as it's the driving point of the film.
Absolutely. And that's the real sort of like crowbar separation that they have between something that could be considered, more Chekhov's gun versus more of a MacGuffin. It's if you took it out of the story, is there even a story? Because if you take the Mosasaurus out of the world, you still have the rest of the story. The ending might change. The ending probably definitely changes, but the rest of the story is still there. Where if you take the ring out of Lord of the Rings, what the hell are you going to talk about? What are you going to show? What are you going to do? And so that's, if you're sort of torn between the two, or if it's sort of difficult to tell where they overlap and what are definitely some, it's just think about it. Take it out of the story, and is there a story left? Is there a plot to this anymore? And so to actually transition into what I just mentioned with motifs, it's another way that you can sort of foreshadow, and that's what all of these sort of boil down to. Is they're all different ways of foreshadowing, and that's why we want to talk today. They're all different ways for the director to kind of like pay attention, and then you're just like, oh, I'm paying attention because this matters. And so with motifs, it's not always for foreshadowing. I should say that too. It's just any sort of reoccurring symbolic thing in a story. It doesn't have to drive the plot. It doesn't have to be a big deal, a loaded and fired gun. It's just something that they keep bringing back as a form of symbolism to show you, or to get you to feel something, or to show you what's happening. Some of them that are definitely elements of foreshadowing are like the color red in The Sixth Sense. Every time you see a ghost, you also see something very, very red in what is otherwise a sort of pale paletted movie. There's a lot of like blues and grays, and everything's sort of a neutral tone, but then there's a bright red object, and then that's to show you, hey, ghosts are around here. One that was done very well recently are just the idea of shoes in Jojo Rabbit. Jojo Rabbit itself is a great movie, but they sort of emphasize shoes. It doesn't matter to the plot. It's not a gun that's loaded and fired. They just sort of get you to pay attention to that. And then it ends up being important later with how we see what happened to his mom. They didn't need to do it. They could have showed us a number of different ways, but they did. And it could be something as simple as weather, or something with the soundtrack. Brandon and I were talking about this before. If there's a character on there, and the entire movie, for the entire soundtrack, it's all string instruments, but for this one character, maybe they're heavy on brass or percussion or something. It's just something that is simple. It could be clouds. It could be raining outside for the entire movie. That's the motif of that. It's raining. It symbolizes sort of the tone. And so this one's a little bit more vague, so it's a little bit harder to give like hardcore examples. But is there something that you've seen in that had a specific motif to it that really stuck with you?
If I'm not wrong, the one coming to my mind, because I know you're saying like sound and stuff like that, like the soundtrack, but Jaws, not like anytime like a shark's around, anything like that. I mean, sorry, Jaws is around. That's just when you hear that and you know it right away what's going on. So that's, I mean, kind of one of the bigger ones that stick out to me.
Yeah, when you hear those strings, he's a coming.
Yeah.
So we don't want to do too much of a deep dive in this, but we do have a couple more things to talk about. And as I said before, these all sort of fall under the umbrella of foreshadowing, or a lack thereof when it needed to be there. And so one thing that can easily be another one of these topics, it could fall under sort of a Chekhov's gun area. It could be a MacGuffin, but it's not only what it is a red herring. Those are some really interesting things that people can do when they're telling a story, and that's just sort of that twist ending that you didn't expect, or it could be anything that led you in one direction and then what was really happening was another. It's the creator of the story distracting you by trying to foreshadow something that isn't true while the truth is happening. And so think of whatever your favorite movie is that with a twist ending. That was possibly a red herring. That's them showing you a specific thing, and then hey presto, it was the other one. So I'll let you take the lead on this one because I feel like I'm using up all the good examples. So, can you think of some of your favorite red herrings in movies?
No, you're totally fine. So, for me, I mean, again, it kind of draws back always to Star Wars and any nerd culture type movies, but in the New Hope, where Empire Strikes Back, where Vader, this whole time is that Vader killed Anakin for Luke Skywalker, his dad, and then you find out that no, like it just completely changed it. I mean, I think that was probably one of the biggest, threw the audiences off, at least back in that time, for Star Wars, and for when he finds out that Darth Vader's actually his father. To me, that's just huge.
I mean, that might be the biggest red herring of all time, if I'm being totally honest, because this is, for the entire story, before that, we were told and we were led to believe that Darth Vader killed Luke's father. That's why all of this is happening. We're on this road. We talked about it. It's not even just foreshadowing. It's just what is happening. And then, oh my God, what just happened? Holy crap, that's insane. And so, I don't even know if there is a bigger one, but some other examples. Another classic, not on the, definitely different than Star Wars, but maybe on the same sort of tier of classic movies. Psycho. The whole movie we're led to believe that Norman Bates is this calm, peaceful, kind of weird guy who works at a motel. And then as we see this story progress, it's like, oh my God, but he has this crazy, murderous mother who is killing people, and he is a victim just like they are. Twist ending. Holy crap, it was Norman. What the heck was that? It's just that sort of like, oh my God, I didn't see that coming. And those are some good examples. And there are a whole bunch. I mean, Sirius Black in the third Harry Potter, Verbal Kint's entire story in The Usual Suspects. The Mist is a great example of it, when you think the army lost and the horrible ending happens where he kills his whole family and then he gets out and then, surprise, didn't need to do that. But there are also some really, really bad ones. The ones where you're just like, what are you doing? Like, we saw this coming a mile away. You aren't clever at all. We know. This isn't a surprise. Or, the other thing that happens is you get into sort of a Deus Ex Machina territory, which we'll also break down, and everyone's just kind of confused. Instead of being like, oh my God, I didn't see that coming. That's his dad? Oh my God, he's not dead. It's just like, what the hell was that? We didn't talk about this at all during this movie. You just... Go away. Just stop. This is awful. And I don't want to, like, try to bash anyone specifically, but that kind of happens a lot in M. Night Shyamalan movies, where they're trying too hard for a twist ending, and it ends up just being nonsense. Or it ends up being something that you don't even follow because they're trying way too hard to be sneaky. So it's definitely something that you have to walk a fine line with. You have to not show your hand so much that it's obvious. But we got to know there are cards on the table. Something. We got to know that something happens and then there's something twisted. Because otherwise, everyone just goes, what the hell was that? And I'll kick it to you, actually, for this last one. You can introduce our Deus Ex Machina topic, if you'd like.
So, for a final example of everything foreshadowing and poor foreshadowing is Deus Ex Machina. For myself, honestly, kind of the best example I can come up with here is, again, going back to Lord of the Rings, is so it comes to the point of it seems like the heroes they're done. They're going to either die or lose, and then some magical, pretty much thrown in a plot is like, hey, here's a Band-Aid, and now they're saved, they win, it's fixed. And for me, Lord of the Rings, it's kind of like the Eagles. When they arrive to save Gandalf at the end, you're like, okay, yeah, Frodo's done, Sam's going to die, their lava's filling everywhere around them, and then just Eagles. So I think that's kind of the best one, at least for all you nerds out there to understand.
That's definitely a classic. And I'm not even a big Lord of the Rings fan. I've seen them all, I'm sure. but I don't know if I've ever like sat down and watched all of them beginning to end in one go.
That's right.
So that's like the level I'm at. But I've had conversations with people who justified the Eagles and brought out maps and like quotes and stuff. So this is definitely a hot topic in terms of if it's a crappy way to do it or if it's a solid way to do it. But yeah, any sort of example of a day, just when you think there's like a helpless ending, the bad guy's gonna win, the bad thing's gonna happen, and then out of nowhere, this like magical, super awesome thing just swoops out of nowhere and saves the day. And that's something that I'm not going to say you can't do well, because you definitely can. If you foreshadow well, if you bring up that this is a topic, that this is something that can happen, again, kind of like the Mosasaurus, that feels vaguely like a Deus Ex Machina. It looked like end of the day here, and then there's just a Mosasaurus that comes out and saves the day. But they gave you the examples before, they let you know what this is, they introduced it well, they foreshadowed the ending a little bit, and so I could see how you could be on either side of that, whether it's a good example or a bad example. But it's anything that just like unexpectedly shows up out of nowhere in a seemingly hopeless end. And so some other examples, the Eagles are a great one, and we could do a whole episode on it. But some other ones, I'm gonna get some hate from the Harry Potter book fans out there, but the Sword of Gryffindor in the second one, in the Chamber of Secrets, something that wasn't mentioned at all before. If you were only watching the movies, you have no idea what the heck's going on, and all of a sudden a sword literally magically just appears to save the day. And then, oh my god, here's another one. Now he saved the day, but he's gonna die. Oh wait, no, it's cool, there's a phoenix here. And everyone knows Phoenix Tears have healing powers, because we've never mentioned that before in this entire series. But sure, cool. Everything's cool. The kid who's stuck in a chamber with a giant basilisk, here's a sword. You're done. You got him. You're fine. Oh no, you got stabbed. Or you got bitten, technically. We'll just have a Phoenix cry on you. Everyone knows Phoenix Tears have healing powers. And so those... And again, I'm sorry to the book authors out there. I'm sure that they explained that so much better in the books. And there's just some things you can't, blah, 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 blah. The movies? Total crap. Because it just came out of nowhere, and it gives you that sort of like, what is this? Like, I didn't know any of this, and now I'm just supposed to know. Everyone knows, okay, Another one is the bacteria or the germs in worlds. It's like these giant aliens are coming down and just beating the crap out of us. There's no way we can do anything against them. Our military is helpless. Our citizens are helpless. People are just getting destroyed left and right. But germs are going to save the day. They're just randomly dropping dead because of germs. I mean, it's something I feel like they would have checked out before they maybe landed here. But whatever. We don't need to talk about war. Another one that's sort of on the fence for me, I don't know, I don't even know if it's a good or a bad example, is the T-Rex in the first Jurassic Park movie. Now, throughout the entire movie, they show you the T-Rex. Like, we know he's a beast. We know he does things. So they introduce him well. But then they're just inside a cafeteria, surrounded by velociraptors. And there is a T-Rex just right there who comes to save the day, literally as they're about to, just comes down and, oh, hey, here we are, saving the day. Definitely a Deus Ex Machina situation, but I don't know if I love it or hate it. And that's the thing with these, is that they're all subjective. You could love all of them. You could hate all of them. You could have no problem at all with them. You could love that. Think of it as sort of a twist ending, you know? I'm typically not a fan, because it just feels like a lazy escape from having a well-developed ending. And so that's sort of the trap that you can fall in a lot, is you can just write this movie and then just have to end it. And so you just slap, like Brandon said, you slap a Band-Aid on it and, hey, we fixed it. It's done. It's like, what are you doing to me, man? And so to sort of bring this all back, this is another way you can foreshadow, or in this case, maybe a lack thereof. There wasn't enough foreshadowing, so we don't know what it is. And that's why foreshadowing is so important, and that's why you see it in nearly every story that's ever been told. You need to set your table before you can eat. You need to load the gun before you can shoot it. You need to have your audience be aware of what's going on, so that way when things start to happen, everyone's not like, what is happening? I don't know anything. You set the table. You did it well. We know what happened, so we can kind of think about what's going to happen. And so that's why we wanted to talk about this in depth. We want to do a deep dive, and not all of these are always going to be perfect examples, and there's a whole lot we can talk about here, but we wanted to just sort of get across some basic ideas of foreshadowing and some of the techniques you could do to foreshadow.
Yeah, and I think a big thing for me, I mean, as we've mentioned, it's kind of nice because this is definitely kind of out of my comfort zone with it. And it definitely makes me look at movies in a different way. And maybe, someone out there as well who is maybe someone like me who's just kind of there to enjoy the movie. You just kind of there to have a good time and don't think any further. But now next time you watch your next film, you're going to think, are there foreshadowing techniques? Like what's going on in the film? And then it'll kind of help enhance your movie watching experience and, kind of have a better understanding of why things happen in movies.
Yeah, it's definitely fun, man. And it's something that is so obvious, but so easy to miss as well. If you're not like consciously looking for it, your brain just accepts it. So you don't even realize that it's happened. You can see them on the screen load the gun that they're going to fire later. And you remember it because they foreshadowed it well, and you see the ending and you like it, but at the time you didn't think they're loading that gun that they're going to shoot later. They're setting the table that we're going to eat at. Maybe there's a MacGuffin in one of your favorite movies. Think, yeah, this is what the story is. But then think about, wait a minute, it all revolves around this one thing. Without this one thing, there is no movie. So it's kind of fun to go over these and to really do a deep dive into some of these specific techniques, because then you can see them in your favorite movies, or you can see them maybe in the next movie that you see, and it gives you sort of an appreciation for the creators, whether it's the writer, the director, whoever. You get an appreciation for how much thought process goes into quite literally every single thing that they show you, especially in movies. Every scene in a good movie is important, and every scene carries information with it. It could be loading the gun, it could be showing you the MacGuffin, it could be setting up a red herring, but they're all going to be there, and they're all going to have that sort of example of the foreshadowing. Maybe not every single one of these is going to be, there's going to be elements of foreshadowing pretty much every movie that you can think of. So let us know what some of your favorite examples are. It doesn't have to be one of these specific techniques. It totally could be could be vague foreshadowing. Maybe, fortune tellers, part of your favorite movie. Anything, but let us know.
All right, awesome. And as we mentioned previously earlier on in the show, a little foreshadowing, make sure to check out tomorrow. If you're watching this when this actually does come out at noon on Wednesday, we'll be reviewing Enola Holmes. We'll be doing a little Netflix party for it. So if you're watching that prior to that, about 8 p.m. Central Time, come hang out with us, come watch the movie. And if not, you're watching it after that, it'll be dropping on Saturday. So you can go ahead and check out that review Saturday when it does come out. And if you want to follow us on any other platforms outside, of course, or if you're listening to us right now or watching us, if that's YouTube or Spotify or any other podcasting platforms, thanks to Anchor, go ahead and go to our website. It is now thenerdchambers.com, no longer nerdchambers.com. Got that all sorted out, got that updated, which is cool. So thenerdchambers.com, we have all of any sort of social media on there, from Twitter, Instagram, our merch site, to go ahead and get any of your TNC and TNC Movie Nights merch. Go ahead and definitely check that out when you have the opportunity. We do have a sale coming up this weekend. Should be the 25th to the 27th, I want to say, and then it's 15% off your entire order. Nice little sale for everyone out there. And then,
I like it.
Yeah, do you have anything else for us, Alex?
Just want to say big credit to Manny for that one. I mean,
yeah.
I know a lot of people worked on this website, but he busted his ass, and it looks awesome.
Looks really good.
Such a big fan. It looks great, and I can't wait for us to really incorporate that website a lot more. So big shout out. Thanks, Manny. But other than that, I got nothing for you, man. Send us home.
All right. I am Brandon. This is Alex.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, I guess bye.